is the post-Paris talks, where to from here for the planet, and over 250 million people displaced from low-lying areas. Our second speaker, I'm sure, is very well known to you. He's spoken here several times before. It's David, who's an LLC, a Greens MP in the New South Wales Parliament. He serves in the state's upper house since 2010. And as a Greens MP, he shares the climate change portfolio with all of his colleagues, but is central to the work he does in planning forest and justice. Among David's current campaigns are working to create a planning system for New South Wales that is sustainable and community-orientated, and campaigning for an end to native forest logging so that we can preserve our forests for the future. David was elected Greens councillor on a Woollahra council for 2 terms. Before entering Parliament, David worked as a lawyer for 13 years and the majority of his time as a barrister. He lives in Sydney with his partner, Patricia, and 2 daughters.
I'd like first of all to acknowledge we're meeting tonight on Gadigal land. Pay my respects to those elders past and present of the land we're meeting on. Always was, always will be Gadigal land. Aboriginal peoples in this continent have never ceded sovereignty. They deserve and we owe them a treaty. And on this Gadigal land, this is 21 days in a row now that Sydney has had maximum temperatures above 26 degrees. First time ever we've had that run ever in Sydney's recorded climate history. 21 days in a row. And there were parts actually of Sydney today that was, in Western Sydney, that was sweltering at 42 degrees Celsius just today. And that little sort of, little local hot spot of climate irregularity has been matched with year after year of global record temperatures. Last year was the hottest year on record. So it's really an enormously opportune time to be gathering together to talk about what happened in Paris and to try and sort of tease our way through the spin of what happened in Paris and try and work out what the reality of it was. Because the international climate movement, those billions of people around the planet who have been desperately keen for their governments and the corporations who pretty much run this place to actually acknowledge the reality of climate change and then start to make some meaningful changes to the way we occupy this planet so as we can be sure that our kids will actually have a stable climate, a stable economy and stable societies to inherit. Those billions of people around the world who have been demanding action, from my perspective, from my dealings with them, they were pretty much at the end of their tether. We'd seen some hope in 1992 in Rio, but then we saw an absolute disaster in Copenhagen in 2009. And many people in the environment movement, climate change activists after 2009 really were just sort of knocked flat. They had the energy, they had the hope, they had promise knocked out of them, and they wondered how they could pull themselves back on their feet. And they wondered if this extraordinary juggernaut that is this corporate-driven fossil fuel economy, they wondered if this juggernaut can ever be brought to heel before it destroys this precious planet. And I think many people were feeling that after Copenhagen. And indeed, I think part of the reason why the Australian electorate is so keen, and it's mirrored, you see, in the United States and other parts of the world, so keen to latch on to climate change deniers and to the mock science of climate change deniers, is because acknowledging the reality of the problem is a deeply frightening factor. It's a deeply frightening reality to recognise the reality. If we don't get this right, we don't just make a minor policy mistake, we screw up the planet. And that's a pretty hard thing to acknowledge and recognise, and particularly when you've got this fossil fuel corporate juggernaut that's not only not getting it right, it isn't even within a bull's roar of recognising the problem or beginning the initial changes. So that after 2009, I think many of us were in this sort of